Do you think that means anything to people who are suffering when they hear you say the fundamentals are sound?
Well, look, it's not much reassurance to people who themselves are suffering great at this moment. I understand that, but that's why we're trying to take steps to assist people. For example, we've put in our platform additional tax cuts for senior citizens. We put in our platform help for families who are trying to care for a disabled person. We brought in a big savings plan for the disabled, and now we're going to bring income splitting for those people. So we're trying to help people who are hurting. But what I'm equally concerned about, all those people who aren't hurting but are worried. And I think what they need to understand is the government has a plan, and the government isn't going to be pressured. This Prime Minister isn't going to panic, and he isn't going to be pressured into doing something stupid just for the sake of proving that we're doing something. Because there's a lot of ideas out there like that, Peter. The opposition's proposing them.
Do you really think that Stéphane Dion was panicking when he suggested he should have some meetings, that the First Minister should gather, that he should talk to the regulators, to senior economists in the country and hear what they're saying about it? Was that panic?
I think that when you go into a leaders' debate and you're running on a platform, and that platform has very significant, big spending and tax measures, and the first thing you say in the leaders' debate is, rather than sell my platform, I'm actually going to have more meetings after the election to see if my platform's right and maybe do it all over again. I do think that's panic. I think we're seeing, today, Mr. Dion proposed that he would make it easier to convert RSPs into RIFs, something the government's already done that he voted against not very long ago. I think when you're making it up on the fly at a time like this, I think it is dangerous. And I always think, as you alluded to before we started this interview, I always think making up policy in the middle of an election campaign is a dangerous game.
Okay.
The crisis is. I mean, fortunately, and as I say, we go back to people are really worried about their savings, but the crisis right now in Canada, the big crisis, is a drop in the stock market. And you and I both know that governments can rarely do anything about the stock market. I've never taken credit for rises in the stock market because, one dynamic drives it and then it goes down. So the stock market, the stock market will sort itself out. I suspect some good buying opportunities are opening up with some of the panic we've seen in the stock market in the last few days. In terms of credit and liquidity...
Do you really want to be heard saying that? Are you suggesting people should be buying?
I think there are probably some great buying opportunities out there. I just happened to attend a business luncheon where a number of businessmen said exactly the same to me. We always know that, when stock markets go up, people end up buying a lot of things that are overpriced, and when stock markets go down, people end up passing on a lot of things that are underpriced. So I think there are probably some gains to be made in the stock market.
That implies, I don't want to belabor it, but it implies we're at the bottom.
Well, we may be at the bottom of some stocks. As I say, stock markets invariably overreact to any piece of news. I just think I've watched the stock market for a long, long time, and that's a conclusion I've come to. There's been some bad news. I think stock markets have overreacted to it. Let's take the oil stocks. Clearly, they overreacted to the run-up in prices, and now they're overreacting to the fall in prices. Oil prices are down, but they're still higher than they were a year ago.
Do you wish, on the issue of culture and the budgets, culture budgets, do you wish you had not said 2 weeks ago, I think when ordinary working people come home, turn on the TV and see a gala of a bunch of people, at a rich gala, all subsidized by taxpayers claiming their subsidies aren't high enough when they know those subsidies have actually gone up, I'm not sure that's something that resonates with ordinary people. Do you wish you hadn't said that? Because people suggest that because you said that, and the whole issue of budgets for culture programs, that your numbers in Quebec have gone straight south.
Well, I'm not going to comment on polls. We have 100 different polls during this campaign, including in Quebec, and some were up and some were down. And last night we had a huge rally in Montreal. So,
do you wish you hadn't said that?
Look, I don't like the way it was torqued, but I think there's a central message, which is that the government is responsible for the management of taxpayer funds. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to culture, this government has increased funding for culture, and all we've done in culture is the same we've done in every other area that governments are going to have to do going forward. And that's look at every area, examine every program, and make sure we shift spending towards things that are most effective or getting bang for the buck, that respond to social needs, and reducing programs that are not as effective. And that's all we've done in the cultural area. And
but you know that quote
made
it look like you were using cultural groups as some kind of punching bag to shore up support in other areas that don't go to rich galas.
No, I was simply saying that I think it's unfortunate, an impression given at a gala that the government's cutting the gala when it's not. When in fact the taxpayers are generously subsidizing that. And as I say, we're not denying that there's some areas where we've reduced funding, but we've done so in order that we can invest in other areas. For instance, let me give you a couple of concrete examples. We talked about we reduced some of the programming that was spent on subsidization of international activity. But at the same time, the government's announced $25 million more for TV5, the French language network that disseminates Canadian cultural programming internationally, because, frankly, that's been a more effective vehicle. We're also able in this campaign to announce that we're going to have tax credits for kids' artistic and cultural activities. It won't just help families, but will help all the people who teach in those areas. So as I say, I think in the end these are good decisions. I'll agree with you this much. I think I got baited into an argument that probably I should have just stuck with explaining our policies.
All right. Well, let me try and